How you become an expert biohacker is you question everything. I mean, you question your responses to everything that you take. Like, why did this stack do this? Why was there a side, this sort of weird side effect with the stack? You know, why am I getting lethargy with choline? You have to know why. You know, if you dose any one of the stack suggestions that I've given you guys, don't get a great response, right? This is really for responses that you're not, you don't suspect or you don't expect to get. Well, why did it happen? It was like, hey, take these 6 compounds and you can make an amazing energy stack. It's a video that we recently did. If you take that stack and, you know, you got some good energy, but it puts you in a place where focus is difficult, or you'd rather multitask, or your brain is moving too fast for you to actually process information in some sort of meaningful capacity. Why? Like, that's what makes a person a true biohacker, is asking why. Responses to test producing protocols, right? I mean, if the protocol is right, you should get a pretty significant response. Certain protocols that may be effective for some guys for raising tests will not be effective for others. You know, and if you're on a protocol that you read somewhere on the web or heard from someone or put some things together and Jimmy or whatever got some good response from it, but you didn't, you have to ask why. What is the difference between you and Jimmy? You got to look upstream on how test is made, right? Hypothalamus, I mean, it really starts from the gonadotropes, a particular type of cell called the gonadotropes that produce gonadotropin-releasing hormone, and then the pituitary, then LH and FSH. What's wrong in that process? You have to ask that question.
In other words, question everything. So I had a client that came to me to do a one-on-one program. He was like, look, man, when I first started taking nootropics, I was getting insane results. I really, really liked the level of brain performance that I could have. And I want to operate like that at least 5 days a week. His major problem was the consistency in his stacks was lacking. So we worked it out, right? It was about figuring out why. Well, what is he taking, right? It turns out his stacks were pretty much mostly cholinergic. His stacks were dominated by aniracetam, oxiracetam, alpha GPC. Never even tried CDP choline. He was taking Noopept, he was taking Alcar. Now look, he had 9-MEBC, he had bromontane, and he had run some individual experiments with them with just those chemicals, like 50 milligrams bromontane or something. Went back to the tried and true. That's people's issues, by the way. You go back to what works for you, and then you don't diversify because you don't know how. A true neurohacker in this sense of, you know, optimizing brain performance with nootropics in an optimal, sustainable way always asks the question, why can't I get good responses from other nootropics? Or what am I doing wrong? Or what else do I need to do? Or how many stacks can I put together that work? And in what strategy so that I can have a diversified set of stacks? There turned out to be, through my fact-finding process, because this is how I think, a few things that were kind of awry. Number one, he had desensitized his response to cholinergic nootropics for the most part, right? So that necessitated a pretty big gap, a break, if you will, off of choline-centered nootropics, while at the same time trying to upregulate and create more cholinergic receptors. Nicotine, right? Because nicotine, the more you take it, the more cholinergic receptors you actually end up creating. Another strategy was just helping him to synthesize choline a little better, right? And we did that with coliracetam, because that's what it does, right? I mean, this is all about specificity. Coliracetam helps you synthesize more acetylcholine from precursor, right? It's an uptake agent. We diversified the stack, hit it in the correct way, kind of took a break from the cholinergics, worked on the dopamine side with an intelligently put together stack, and then it got results. Traffic is an absolute B. It's Friday, it's 5 p.m. Yep.
And the greatest part about this is, like, the more questions you ask about why something is happening or why something isn't happening around nootropics or testosterone or otherwise biohacking, the more rabbit holes you can go down of research and reading and understanding and maybe consuming the anecdotals of other people, and the more formulation and mapping you can do in your head to figure out what's going on. By the way, that process doesn't end. Still to this day, there are things that happen, whether with client work or with myself, that I'm like, why did that happen? You know, I need to understand this. And sometimes, like, I just get nuts about it. I'll take a day or two carving time out to research that thing and figure out, why did this happen? You have to get that obsessive about things, right? You got to make it a major priority for you to figure out the answer to your problem, to your question. And look, that requires a learning curve. There's a big learning curve there. I mean, there may be things about the element of physiology that you're trying to work on and figure out why a stack's not hitting correctly or how you can diversify stacks that you don't understand.
So let me give you some principles to sort of solidify all this. Number one, seek the inner workings. Whether it's a transmitter, it's a hormone receptor, it's a foodstuff that's like triggering some weird response in your brain, like try to understand what ingredient is in the foodstuff that is causing this reaction, how it's interacting with brain chemistry. So principle number one in really being an expert biohacker is seek the inner workings of everything that you're focused on. Number two, understand the physiology of your specific target, okay? If you're targeting dopamine, increasing it, making it signal better, and then generally getting a better, dopaminergic response in general throughout your life to have more energy and motivation and focus toward things, understand dopamine physiology. Number three, read and contemplate and solidify an understanding of what you're targeting. Look, I mean, I spend on average 2 hours a day. Like literally 2 hours a day, reading research journals and papers and studies on brain science, hormone science, immunology, the microbiome, everything else in between. But I wouldn't be as smart as I am now, able to affect my own physiology, clients' physiology, and physiology in general if I didn't spend a lot of time reading and contemplating and then solidifying my understanding of things. And then number four, reapproach experimentation, again, with the knowledge you've gleaned, modifying your doses and modifying your approach, ultimately to get a better result or to see if there's a necessity for more learning, right? When you go back to reapproaching the experiment that went wrong or taking a stack that for some reason didn't hit and you've modified some doses, you have two options, right? It's either gonna work well because you've done the research and you figured out what happened and you modified the doses accordingly, or it's going to put you in a position where maybe the stack still doesn't hit right. There's a different negative to it, or there's positives, but it can be more significant. Then your job is to figure out why, right? It sets you up for an additional learning period where you should spend the time reading and contemplating and solidifying your understanding of those elements of physiology, and then you come back to reapproaching it. A good biohacker understands the physiology of the target in question. An expert biohacker reads a lot, right? It's a never-ending situation in which there's just so much more to learn. It does not end. Then again, expert biohackers question everything, run through that process, and then reapproach the experiment, trying to affect the system in a positive way. And if they don't, or if there's still something that isn't right, you just kind of go back to the learning process. And this entire process rinses and repeats and rinses and repeats and rinses and repeats for all eternity. Put in that little bit of extra effort and you'll be scores ahead of everybody else that's in biohacking or trying to understand something, and certainly thousands of percentages ahead in knowledge and understanding things that are actionable than regular folks. Look, if you want to understand nootropics to a significant degree and you're brand new, you should get Nootropics Ground Zero. I mean, that is a video course that I created that breaks so many of these compounds down to give you a vast understanding of how to use them. If you're in a year and want to get better results, right? Characterized by being able to put stacks together and do states on cue that actually hit really hard, you know what you're doing, you know how to adjust them to perfection, get the masterclass. Lastly though, the highest level on Nootropics Courses is the Nootropics God course. This is 10 to 15 years of my experimentation with myself, as well as working with clients, put into a video course about nootropics. Lastly, if you would like to know a whole heck of a lot about testosterone physiology and how to raise your own testosterone sustainably in a way that I can guarantee you'll get results, we just launched the Testosterone Superclass. Get that at livecortex.com. And lastly, if you need my help, we've got consulting programs. We have Nootropics Plus, which is a consulting program that allows us to hammer stacks down for you, overhaul your regimen, figure out what's causing your energy issues and fix them, make you function at 150%,
Or we've got Testosterone Plus. If you don't want to go at it alone and raising testosterone, you'd rather have an expert help you do it, look, we can do it. We'll get you to a great set point, keep you there, and then leave you with a strategy moving forward so that you can continue optimizing testosterone thereafter. Get all those products at livecortex.com. Coupon codes for this weekend. Coupon code 15NOW, 15NOW, gets you 15% off every product on the roster. So whether it's the Cortex nootropic stack, powerful pre-made stack that'll give you mental energy, verbal fluency, and a bunch of motivation, you can save 15% right now using the coupon code 15NOW. So go get some epic product, go get into some learning about nootropics and hormone physiology and testosterone, and have a great weekend.